When my wife and I moved into what we thought was our dream neighborhood, we never imagined the HOA would target her so viciously. They wrote letters, threatened fines, and tried to humiliate her. But they had no idea about her past or her military-trained K9s waiting for command. We had just bought our first home in a community that, on the surface, seemed perfect. Manicured lawns, quiet streets, neighbors who smiled as you drove past. It looked like the type of place where families could build lifelong memories. My wife, Sarah, and I were excited. We thought we had found peace after years of constant moving, deployments, and long stretches apart. She's a veteran, a woman who's endured things most people couldn't imagine. I knew this neighborhood would be a well-deserved break from the chaos we'd been through. We unpacked, met a few friendly neighbors, and felt good about our choice. The one thing we didn't think too much about was the HOA. Sure, they sent out welcome packets and had rules about lawn maintenance and trash pickup, but that didn't seem unusual. We were wrong, because behind those neatly printed rules was a group of people who thrived on control. And before long, they decided Sarah was going to be their next target. At first, it was little things. A note left in our mailbox saying our trash bins weren't aligned properly. A warning that our mailbox color didn't match HOA-approved shades. Then came the letter about a small flower pot Sarah had placed by the front porch. Apparently, it wasn't regulation size. We laughed at it in the beginning. How can anyone take these rules so seriously? But the tone of the letters grew sharper. Instead of reminders, they became warnings. Instead of friendly suggestions, they were veiled threats, fines, penalties, even the possibility of legal action. I started to notice that most of these letters were addressed to Sarah. Not both of us, just her. It felt intentional, almost like they were trying to single her out, to break her down. But here's the thing. Sarah isn't the type you can intimidate. Years of service, leading military K9s in situations far more dangerous than a suburban cul-de-sac, had shaped her into a woman who doesn't back down. Still, the HOA didn't know who they were dealing with. It wasn't long before the HOA's pettiness turned into open hostility. One board member came to our door uninvited, accusing Sarah of parking her car an inch too close to the curb. Another claimed her choice of outdoor furniture clashed with the neighborhood's aesthetic standards. They weren't just policing our yard. They were policing her. Neighbors whispered about how the HOA seemed fixated on her. I remember one lady quietly telling me, "They've picked someone new this year. They always do." That made my blood boil. My wife wasn't some pawn in their power games. Sarah tried to brush it off at first. She'd laugh, shake her head, and say, "Compared to what I've seen overseas, this is child's play." But I could tell it was eating at her. The constant harassment, the feeling of being watched, the endless stream of letters, all of it was designed to wear her down. But what the HOA didn't realize was that every time they pushed, they weren't breaking her spirit. They were reminding her of who she really was, a soldier, a leader, and someone who knew exactly how to stand her ground. And soon, she'd have help. The final straw came one Saturday afternoon. Sarah was trimming the hedges when an HOA board member, a man named Tom, walked right onto our lawn without permission. No knocking, no greeting, just barging in. He started lecturing her about how our hedges weren't trimmed to community standard height. His tone wasn't just rude, it was demeaning. Sarah calmly told him to step off her property. He smirked and said, "We'll fine you every single day until you learn how things work here." That was it. I saw Sarah's eyes shift, calm, focused, steady. That was the same look she used to give before a military operation. It wasn't anger. It was control. That night, she sat at the table and said, "Enough is enough. They want to intimidate me? Let's see how they react when they realize I don't stand alone." And she wasn't talking about me. She was talking about the dogs. Sarah had served with military working dogs for years. After retiring, she adopted 2 of them, Zeus, a German Shepherd with unmatched discipline, and Roxy, a Belgian Malinois with nerves of steel. These weren't just pets. They were trained, loyal, and razor-sharp in obedience. Most of the time, they were calm companions, lounging around the house or chasing tennis balls in the backyard. But when Sarah gave them a command, you could see the switch flip. Their posture straightened, Their eyes locked in, and they radiated authority. The HOA only saw them as dogs. Big, maybe intimidating, but nothing more. They had no idea the kind of training these K9s had gone through. They had no idea what it meant when Sarah said, "Heel," in that steady, commanding voice. And soon, they were about to find out. A week later, the HOA scheduled a so-called compliance inspection on our property. Sarah was outside, dogs at her side, when 3 board members walked up, clipboards in hand, fake smiles plastered on their faces. Tom, of course, was leading the charge. He began listing supposed violations. A hose left out, grass an inch too long, even accusing Sarah of creating security concerns with her dogs. That was the moment Sarah gave a quiet command. Zeus and Roxy rose from their sitting positions, moving in perfect unison. They didn't bark. They didn't growl. They just stood tall, alert, eyes locked on the intruders. Their discipline was unnerving. Tom froze mid-sentence. The other 2 board members shuffled backward. Sarah didn't raise her voice, didn't threaten. She simply said, "These dogs served with me overseas. They've faced things you can't even imagine. They don't bite unless I tell them to. Now are we done here?" Silence. The board scribbled something on their clipboards, muttered about reviewing matters, and backed off the property as quickly as they could. For the first time, they realized intimidation wouldn't work here. After that confrontation, everything changed. The HOA still sent letters, but they were less aggressive, almost cautious. Neighbors started talking, too, about how Sarah had stood her ground without raising a hand, how her dogs had shown more discipline than the board members ever could. One by one, people began siding with her. Some even admitted they'd been harassed in the past, but were too afraid to speak up. Sarah became a quiet symbol of resistance in the neighborhood. Not because she fought with anger, but because she stood firm with strength and discipline. And the HOA? They never dared set foot on our lawn again. In the end, Sarah didn't just defend herself. She reminded everyone what real strength looks like. Not loud, not reckless, not cruel. Strength rooted in calm, controlled authority. The HOA tried to bully her, but all they did was expose their own weakness. Against discipline, loyalty, and courage, their threats meant nothing. And if there's one lesson from this whole ordeal, it's this. Never underestimate someone whose backbone was forged in service, and never forget the loyalty of the dogs who stand beside them. So that's the story of how my wife stood up to the HOA, with her K9s by her side. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button, drop a comment about what you do in her situation, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories like this one. Because sometimes the quietest strength comes from the most unexpected places, and in our case, it came with pause, discipline, and loyalty that can't be bought.